Hi, Scott Orlin with Cinema Magazine. My next guest over the years has produced some of the best and most successful films ever in Hollywood. But she's changed hats. Now she has a new job. She is the head of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy. Let's go a little more official. Now, this first movie out of the gate is a small little independent film, which I think is wonderful, called Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Why now, after 32 years, is it the right time to reawaken the Star Wars franchise?
You know, it's interesting. I don't know if 10 years ago would have been the right time or not, but it certainly feels like we've hit a moment where there are people who have loved the Star Wars universe. It's been a decade since a movie's been made. There are people who are looking forward to bringing their kids who don't know anything about Star Wars and introducing them to Star Wars. So I don't know what the collision is that's happened that makes this feel like it's the right time, but it certainly does feel like that.
And when I said 32 years, I meant bringing back the original cast that's coming back. One of the fascinating elements is there's such incredible anticipation for this movie, and yet you kind of have to be a little secretive about it. How much do you give out? How much in this day and age of Twitter and Facebook where everybody knows everything?
I think that that's something that we talk about all the time, and I think the fans have really told us that they don't want us to tell them too much. So that's something that we've taken to heart, and in our work with Disney and the marketing team, we've had a lot of conversations about how much do we give away before people start to feel like, oh my God, you've told us too much. I don't know if I want to go to the movie. So we're really doing this for them. This is the fans talking to us, and we're responding to that.
So maybe just give a little something away here, hopefully is. And that is, when you were putting this project together, you were deciding that it was going to be 30 to 40 years later. Why was that element of the story, why was it important to go into the future and start the story at that point?
Well, actually, that was a conversation I had with George Lucas. And when George had the idea that he would perhaps start making movies again, it was always discussed that it would go from Return of the Jedi 30 years later. And a big part of that is that's how long it's been since New Hope. And if we were going to have Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher back in the movie, it would need to be 30 to 35 years later.
And I want to ask you as well, because not only are we having this Star Wars resurgence, but you're expanding the universe of some of the essences of these characters and the world that has been created. Can you give a little State of the Union, so to speak, about what the audiences can expect beyond just the Star Wars titles?
Yeah, it's interesting. This, again, was something that I had talked to George about, and I think what's fascinating about Star Wars is it's a place, it's a world, and we realized that there was a huge opportunity to create other stories, other genres that stood on their own, that weren't movies that necessarily were dependent on expanding into a franchise. We could cast those movies, they had a beginning, a middle, and an end, so we're calling those Star Wars stories. They sit outside the Skywalker saga, and the first one is almost finished shooting. It's called Rogue One.
Okay, and just a last quick question for you. You got one of the coolest moments ever. You got to sit in the Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
As a fanboy yourself, what was that like?
That was incredible. I have to say, building the Millennium Falcon and putting that on our sets, anytime anyone came to Pinewood to visit, the first thing they would say was, where's the Millennium Falcon? I don't know what it was. People would get teary, they would get emotional. I just think it's something that so informs that feeling you have about Star Wars. So it was pretty exciting to sit in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon.
All I can say is may the Force be with you.
Thank you,
Kathleen
Scott.
Kennedy, as always, such a pleasure. And this is Scott Orlin. Till next time.
Excellent.